Is college a scam? A deep dive into costs, benefits, and alternatives. College used to be seen as a golden ticket to the American dream, the pathway to stability, a good job, and a comfortable life. Parents told their kids, go to college and you'll be set. But today, that promise feels shaky. Tuition prices are skyrocketing, debt is piling up, and many graduates are asking a blunt question. Is college a scam? Let's start with the number one reason people doubt its value: the cost. Since the year 2000, the average price of college, tuition, fees, room and board, has gone up nearly 60%. During that same time, the wages of college graduates barely moved, just 5% after adjusting for inflation. In plain terms, tuition has grown about 12 times faster than the paycheck that comes with a degree. Think about that. Imagine buying a car in 2000 for $15,000. By 2019, that same car would cost nearly $25,000. But your raise at work? It would barely cover a few tanks of gas. That's the math students are living with today. And here's what makes it worse. In the early 1980s, a summer job could pay for most of your tuition at a public university. Today, that same job might not even cover textbooks. Since 1980, tuition has risen more than 11 times its original cost, while wages have only doubled. The balance is completely out of whack. This is why debt has become the standard. The average student leaves school with around $30,000 in loans. For some, it's far more. 1 in 10 borrowers owes over $80,000. Altogether, Americans now carry over $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. That's more than all the credit card debt in the country combined. And it's not just the numbers, it's the way people feel about those numbers. Surveys today show fewer than 1 in 4 Americans believe a 4-year degree is very important for getting a good job. Only about 22% think college is worth it if you have to borrow money to pay for it. For older generations, a degree was the surest path to security. For today's families, it feels more like a gamble. So is college a scam? Not exactly. Nobody's standing behind a curtain running a con. But the economics of college have changed so much that the value proposition is no longer guaranteed. For some students, it pays off big. For others, it can be a financial trap. So now we know the price tag is steep. But here's the other side of the equation. What do you actually get for all that money? Let's break it into 3 big categories: earnings, job security, and opportunity. First, let's talk earnings. On average, college graduates do come out ahead. A bachelor's degree holder makes about $22,000 more each year than someone with only a high school diploma. Stretch that out across a lifetime, and the difference adds up to nearly $1 million extra. That's the college wage premium you've probably heard about. But here's the catch. That's an average. It's like saying, the average temperature in America is 54 degrees. Sure, but it hides the fact that in Florida it's hot and in Alaska it's freezing. With college, the variation comes down to your major. Take engineering or computer science. Graduates in those fields often start their first jobs making $55,000 to $70,000 a year. In some specialties, like petroleum engineering, they're 6 figures within just a few years. Now compare that to someone with a degree in psychology, English, or fine arts. Their starting salaries are often closer to $30,000 to $35,000. Same 4 years in class, but double the paycheck for one path versus the other. So yes, college pays, but only if you look closely at what you're paying for. Now, job security. Here's where a degree still helps. In good times and bad, college graduates are less likely to be unemployed. During the 2008 recession, unemployment for workers without a degree shot over 15%. For bachelor's holders, it peaked closer to 5%. Even today, when the economy wobbles, employers usually hold onto college grads more than high school grads. It's not just the knowledge you gain, it's the signal to employers that you can stick with something tough, meet deadlines, and solve problems. And then there's opportunity. This is harder to measure, but just as important. Many careers simply require a degree by law: nursing, teaching, accounting, engineering. For others, like business or tech, the degree might not be legally required, but it acts like a key to unlock interviews. In fact, nearly 70% of job postings for good jobs, those paying $35,000 or more, list a bachelor's degree as a requirement. Even if you could technically do the job without one, the degree helps you clear the first hurdle. But, and this is a big but, having a degree doesn't guarantee you use it. Studies show that almost half of recent graduates are underemployed. That means they're working jobs that don't actually require a degree at all, things like retail, food service, or administrative roles. For those grads, the promise of higher earnings hasn't materialized. They've got the debt, but not the return. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that the degree by itself isn't enough anymore. The payoff depends on what you study, how much you pay, and how you use that degree once you've got it. If you borrow $100,000 for a degree in a low-paying field, the numbers will never line up. But if you spend $20,000 for a degree in nursing or computer science, your investment can pay itself back within just a few years. The smarter question isn't, should I go to college? The smarter question is, what's the return on investment for the degree I'm choosing? Here's where things really start to separate, because the truth is, not all degrees are created equal. Let's start with the winners, the majors that consistently deliver a strong return on investment. At the top are the STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, and math. Graduates in these areas often step into salaries that pay off their tuition quickly. An engineering student, for example, can expect to start around $65,000 a year. Computer science graduates? They're often right there too. Nursing majors? Usually in the $60,000 range, with solid job security and a shortage of workers that guarantees demand. And in some specialties, like petroleum engineering or computer systems design, graduates can hit six figures within just a few years. Now compare that to the other end of the spectrum. Majors in arts, humanities, and some social sciences, things like fine art, psychology, English, or anthropology, often start closer to $30,000 to $35,000 a year. That's almost half of what their STEM peers are making, even though the tuition bill was the same. Over time, the lifetime earnings gap can add up to more than $1 million. And here's where debt makes the gap even sharper. A nurse who graduates with $20,000 in loans can pay it off within a few years. But a fine arts major with $100,000 in loans? That's a burden that can last decades. Same piece of paper, completely different financial trajectory. Now, it's not all about money. A history or music degree can absolutely lead to fulfilling careers, especially if paired with graduate school or specific skills. But if we're talking strictly about finances, some degrees are simply harder to justify at today's prices. And this isn't just about fields. Where you study matters, too. A business degree from a respected state university might give you the same opportunities as a private school degree that costs 3 times as much. In fact, many employers today care more about your skills, internships, and portfolio than whether your diploma has a fancy name on it. So, what's the takeaway? If you want the numbers to work in your favor, you need to ask 2 questions before declaring a major. What does the average graduate in this field actually earn? How much debt will I need to take on to get there? If the answers don't line up, if the paycheck can't reasonably cover the loans, then it may be time to rethink the plan. So far, we've looked at majors, but the other big factor in whether college pays off is where you go. Community colleges, state schools, and private universities all carry very different price tags and very different levels of financial risk. Let's start with community college. This option is often overlooked, but it's one of the smartest plays financially. Average tuition is around $3,500 a year. Many students use community college to knock out their general education credits, the math, the writing, the science courses, before transferring to a 4-year university. That simple move can cut the cost of a bachelor's degree almost in half. And for students heading into technical careers or trades, community colleges often provide direct training programs that lead straight into good-paying jobs. Electricians, dental hygienists, mechanics. Many start their careers debt-free with salaries in the $40,000 to $60,000 range. Next, state universities. Public schools were built to give residents affordable access to higher education. In-state tuition averages around $11,000 a year, which is much cheaper than most private colleges. And many state schools have strong reputations, wide alumni networks, and big recruiting pipelines. For most students, this is the sweet spot: relatively low cost, solid prestige, and a path to upward mobility. Finally, private universities. This is where the numbers get scary. Private tuition averages around $38,000 a year, but at some elite schools, the total bill with room and board can climb to $70,000 or even $80,000 annually. That means a 4-year degree could easily run more than $250,000. Now, if you're studying computer science at MIT or finance at the University of Pennsylvania, maybe the connections and prestige justify that cost. Graduates from the top 10 private schools often step into high-paying jobs at major firms. But here's the problem: not all private schools are Ivy League. Spending luxury prices at a lesser-known private college can saddle you with debt that takes decades to escape, without providing a dramatically better outcome than a public school would. Think of it like buying a car. Community college is the reliable, budget-friendly model. State schools are the high-value mid-range. Private universities are the luxury brand, and while luxury can be great, the price tag isn't always worth it. Here's the takeaway: the value of your degree doesn't just depend on what you study, it depends on how much you paid to get it. A nursing degree from a state university may have a far higher ROI than a psychology degree from an expensive private college. So far, we've talked about costs, majors, and types of schools. But let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Here's the real question. Are college graduates actually staying ahead, or is rising debt erasing their advantage? On paper, the numbers look good. The median weekly wage for someone with a bachelor's degree is about $1,500. For someone with just a high school diploma, it's closer to $900. That's roughly a $600 a week advantage, more than $30,000 extra a year. Over the course of a career, that adds up to nearly $1 million. That's the so-called college wage premium, but here's where it gets complicated. From 2000 to 2019, tuition rose nearly 60%. Meanwhile, inflation-adjusted wages for bachelor's holders rose just 5%. Translation: the cost of getting the degree shot up 12 times faster than the pay boost it delivers. And then comes debt. The average graduate leaves school with around $30,000 in loans. Monthly payments usually fall between $350 and $400. For many new graduates, that's like carrying a second rent payment. Debt doesn't just affect wallets, it reshapes lives. Graduates with heavy loans are far less likely to buy homes in their 20s and 30s. They delay starting families, delay investing, and often feel like they're running just to stand still. Surveys show that graduates with more than $50,000 in student loans are 3 times more likely to say their degree wasn't worth it. And here's another wrinkle. The payoff isn't guaranteed right away. Studies show nearly half of graduates under 27 end up underemployed, working jobs that don't require a degree. For those students, the wage premium is wiped out, at least in the short term. Imagine making $32,000 at a retail job while still carrying $400 a month in student loan payments. That's the reality for many. So, is college still worth it? On average, yes, but the margin is thinner than ever before. It used to be that a degree almost guaranteed a leap into the middle class. Today, it's more like a gamble. If you choose the right major, keep debt low, and land a job in your field, you'll come out ahead. But if you don't, the numbers may never balance out. That's why more students are asking, what about the alternatives? If college is no longer the only door to success, could trade schools, bootcamps, or apprenticeships actually be the smarter play? If college is so expensive, and the payoff isn't guaranteed, the obvious question is, are there better options? The answer is yes, and more people are starting to realize it. Let's start with the skilled trades. Jobs like electricians, plumbers, welders, and mechanics don't always get the spotlight, but financially, they make a lot of sense. Training programs usually last 1 to 2 years and cost just a fraction of a 4-year degree. Instead of paying tens of thousands in tuition, you might spend $5,000 to $15,000 total. And when you graduate, you step right into steady work with starting wages around $45,000 to $50,000 a year. With experience, many tradespeople cross the 6-figure mark. And here's the kicker: they do it without ever taking on massive debt. Next, apprenticeships. This model flips the script. Instead of paying to learn, you get paid while you learn. Apprentices in fields like construction, advanced manufacturing, or IT often earn $15 to $25 an hour during training. By the time they're fully certified, they've built experience, industry connections, and savings, not debt. Then there are coding bootcamps and certificate programs. In the tech industry, employers often care more about what you can do than what your diploma says. A coding bootcamp typically lasts 3 to 6 months, costs about $15,000 to $20,000, and can lead directly to jobs paying $60,000 to $80,000 right out of the gate. Not bad compared to 4 years and 6 figures in tuition. And of course, there's entrepreneurship. Starting a business, freelancing, or building an online brand doesn't require a degree, but it does require grit. Roughly a third of US business owners never finished college. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, from tech founders to small business owners, built their futures by learning through experience, not lectures. Now, are these alternatives perfect? No. Trades can be physically demanding. Bootcamps require self-motivation. Entrepreneurship is risky and comes with a high failure rate. But the payoff? For many people, these paths lead to solid, stable, and even lucrative careers, often years ahead of their peers who went the traditional route and started life weighed down by debt. So here's the truth. College is no longer the only door to success. For the right student, it's still a strong option. But for others, trades, apprenticeships, or specialized training might actually be the smarter financial move. We've covered the costs, the majors, the schools, and even the alternatives. Now it's time to ask the big question. What's the smartest move to set yourself up for a great future? The truth is, there's no single path that works for everyone. But there are clear strategies that dramatically improve your odds, whether you choose college or not. First, keep costs low. This is rule number 1. The less debt you carry, the faster you'll see a payoff. Students who graduate with less than $20,000 in loans are 3 times more likely to say their degree was worth it compared to those carrying over $50,000. Community college for the first 2 years, transferring to a state university, applying for scholarships. These moves can save you tens of thousands. Second, choose your major with your eyes wide open. If you love art, history, or music, go for it. But be strategic, pair your passion with practical skills, maybe a double major, a minor, or certifications in areas like business, healthcare, or tech. That way, you're protecting your investment while still pursuing what you love. Third, focus on skills, not just diplomas. Employers today care about what you can do. Internships, apprenticeships, side projects, freelance work, and certifications can sometimes matter more than your GPA. A business degree plus 2 internships? That's gold. A computer science degree plus a portfolio of coding projects? Even better. Fourth, consider the alternatives seriously. College isn't the only road to success. The trades, bootcamps, and apprenticeships can get you into the workforce faster, with less debt, and with solid earnings. If you're more hands-on, or you hate the idea of sitting in lectures for 4 years, these routes may be your best move. Fifth, think long-term. The world is changing fast. Jobs in renewable energy, healthcare, and technology are expected to grow the most in the coming decades. Choosing a career with future demand is just as important as choosing a career with good pay. You don't want to train for a field that's shrinking. And finally, invest in yourself beyond school. Read, network, learn new skills, and stay adaptable. The people who thrive aren't just the ones with the right degree. They're the ones who keep learning, keep evolving, and keep building relationships. So, is college a scam? Not exactly, but it's also not the guaranteed golden ticket it used to be. College can still be worth it, if you play the game smart. That means keeping costs down, choosing the right field, and focusing on building real skills. And if you decide college isn't the right fit, that's okay, too. There are plenty of paths, trades, bootcamps, entrepreneurship, that can lead to stable, lucrative, and fulfilling lives. At the end of the day, the best-case scenario isn't about following the traditional path. It's about making intentional decisions, choices that fit your goals, your finances, and the future you want. That's how you set yourself up not just for a degree, but for a life of stability, freedom, and opportunity.